If you've never printed a photo, what are you doing? I mean, you didn't wake up at 3 a.m. and go on this incredible sunrise hike just to post it on Facebook and get 6 likes from your mom and her friends, right? Of course not. Photography used to be a physical medium before Daddy Zuckerberg ruined all of our lives. So if you take photos for fun or for a living and you're not printing them, why? I know it can be a little bit overwhelming. There's 100 different paper choices and 100 different companies that print, but I'm here to help you out. I teamed up with BayPhoto Lab, my favorite online printing company, and they sent me a couple samples of my photos on their 4 most popular printer papers. This will get you covered. We got everything from gloss to matte. We're gonna get started top to bottom. I'm gonna show you which papers are good for what kind of photography and the differences between them. Let's get into it. I chose 4 of the most common papers. Like I said, there's 50 different choices. These are the most popular 4. Realistically, if you've never printed and you're trying to decide what paper to use, you're probably going to land on one of these. So in order from glossiest to least glossy, I have the Pearl, the Lustre, the Fuji Crystal Matte, and then the Deep Matte Velvet. Let's start at the top. Let's start with the Pearl. This one's the glossiest of the 4 options. And just really quick, if you're not even sure what glossy means, this is Pearl and this is Deep Matte Velvet. If I point these at the light, you can see major difference in how much reflection there is. That's pretty much all I mean when I say matte or glossy, is like how much the light reflects off of it. Okay, so starting with the Pearl, I'm gonna hold this up so that you can really get a good look at it. I mean, that is just a beautiful, beautiful print. Let's point it over at this camera so you can really see it. Again, a lot of reflection. So if you're gonna hang this somewhere with a window, directly across from it, this is probably not the best surface choice because a lot of glare will happen, but it does have really deep colors, really, really crisp details. It's great. There's very little like texture on that surface also. I think it's just, I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful print, I think. It looks pretty amazing. Here, I'll hold it up at this camera too so you can see. It makes those highlights really glow. I love the way this one looks. You can see as the light kind of changes, it almost looks like the sunset itself is happening, which is really incredible. It's almost like a 3-dimensional print. Moving on to the Lustre, you might notice there's less reflection, or rather there's still glare, but instead of seeing the actual, here, let me hold these up side by side. So the Pearl's on the bottom, the Lustre's on the top. You can see on the Pearl, you can actually see the like textures of my grid, my softbox grid, and on the Lustre, it's more just like a soft white glow. So that's the difference. You actually can see the highest gloss, we'll actually see like the details of the reflection, which is kind of crazy. Whereas going to a slightly more matte finish like the Lustre, you still get some reflection, but it doesn't completely eliminate the visibility of the print. It just kind of is like some highlights on it, but that is gorgeous also. I love the depth of it. You don't get quite that same like transitioning from sunset into darker like you do on the other one. It's not quite as 3-dimensional, but it's still beautiful colors, beautiful details. It's still really sharp and really crisp. It's just slightly less reflecty. So if this is in a really bright room, this is gonna be a slightly better option. Now, stepping to the matte, this is the Fujicolor Crystal Archive Matte. It's interesting. It's called matte. It's actually not fully matte. You can see there is some reflection on there still, which is interesting. I think this is an absolutely beautiful option. This would look good. Here, I'll point it away from the light and you can see it still is pretty nice. Like, here, let me hold it up front. So even in a darker room, this would be really beautiful. But then if you're in a bright sunlit room, look at how much depth you get on that. It's really, really, really incredible. Less glare than the other 2 options, than both of them. This is the least amount of reflectivity we've had so far, but just absolutely beautiful, beautiful colors. And then moving on to the Deep Matte Velvet, this is the mattest possible photo print you can get. Look at this, basically no reflection whatsoever. tilting it up and down, there's no difference. Pointed directly at the light changes nothing. So that's the option. If you're in a house with 1,000 windows, you're gonna wanna choose something kind of matte. The flip side is the blacks are less deep. You get less contrast, a little bit less detail. It kind of, I don't want to say washes it out, but there is a little bit less depth. I think it's beautiful. This is a little bit more like a vintage look. If you're shooting on film and you want to print, you know, something that has kind of that nice vintage look, this would be beautiful because you're already going to have slightly raised blacks. You can also compensate for this by putting extra contrast into your image when you print it. Just let's hold them up side by side so you can see. So we've got the pearl on the bottom and the velvet on the top. And then pointed at the screen here, I'll flip it so that you can see the bison, because that's the dark part of the frame. And you can see just how different the amount of contrast is there. It's actually like, it's pretty substantial. Now, reflection-wise, that's pretty stark, right? Like that's a no-brainer which one has worse reflections, but you do lose a lot of contrast with the velvet. It is what it is. It's not the end of the world. You can decide which one you prefer. I think a better comparison, we're going with the glossiest versus the least glossy. So let's go with the matte versus the matte velvet. And then again, you can see like that reflection, you know, the matte is on top here and the velvet's on the bottom, and you can see definitely that the matte has more reflection, but again, more contrast, richer colors and everything. Now let's compare the two glossier options. Again, for the exact same reason, this is the Lustre on top and the pearl on bottom. So reflection-wise, you can really see which one's the reflectiest by far. But colors-wise, getting the reflections out of there, they're both just absolutely beautiful. I think personally the pearl is probably my favorite out of these four, with the Lustre close behind. They're just absolutely gorgeous prints, but you can see the reflections are kind of a thing. I mean, I have a monitor right down here so I can see where I'm holding these prints. And the pearl is so reflecty that when I point it down, you can even see the reflection of my camera monitor, which that's not very bright. So that's kind of incredible that you can see that reflection. It's definitely glossy, and you're only seeing it on the pearl. So Lustre is the #1 seller on BayPhoto. It's by far the most popular standard photo paper, I would say probably in the United States. And there's a reason for that. It has the depth and the beautiful colors of a high gloss or a pearl, but without quite as much reflectivity, so you don't have to worry. Okay, I'm gonna stack these up. I have a second image that I printed that I think will be in a magnificent comparison. The second image that I chose to show is a Northern Lights image. This is a good one to showcase different papers because it has really intense highlights, really intense shadows, and a lot of detail and contrast, and it's just a really like remarkable style of photo. Nighttime images print differently than daytime images, and so I always like to compare both. I don't think you can just take like a daytime landscape image and compare it, and then that's the good paper for every single scenario. So let's look at these and see. Let's start again with the pearl. Honestly, right off the bat, this is my favorite one for night photos. It's a little bit, the glossiness also is like borderline metallic. I don't want to say fully metallic, but it has like just this incredible, like it looks three-dimensional again. It's incredible. Like it looks like the Northern Lights are actually glowing on that image. It's just crazy. Now again, reflections, of course, you can see the texture in my light, in the grid on my softbox, which is a little bit outrageous, but this is, that's beautiful. Like that is just an unbelievable amount of contrast and details, and it looks like the lights are actually glowing. It's really exceptional. Moving on to the Lustre, you lose that reflection again. It softens it up quite a bit, but it still looks Beautiful. This is like what you would consider standard photo paper. If you grew up in a house like mine where your dad was always printing like family photo albums from your trips, this is probably about what everything was printed on. Looks great. It's just a good paper. Let me hold that up so you can see it. There's the reflection. Moving on to the Fuji matte. This is a beautiful paper for this. Also, I really like this one. Looks really good. A lot of details in the dark areas here. A lot of contrast. The sky up here, this dark part, is incredibly contrasty. Like, so comparing, I got the pearl on the top. Let's hold them up side by side. Hopefully that shows in the camera, but the matte on the bottom actually has darker shadows. The sky is a little darker than on the pearl up top. This is a little bit more of a blue to my eye, and this is still kind of blue, but it's like a darker blue. It's getting closer towards like a nighttime black. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't expect that, but it looks, to me, makes the sky part look a little bit better. The highlights of the aurora, maybe not quite as magnificent. I like the pearl more for the highlights, and I like the matte more for the shadows. Interesting data point. Again, the velvet matte, a little bit too low contrast for my liking here, I think. It's a little bit like painterly. It loses a lot of the contrast, again, versus the pearl. Look at how different those skies are. It loses a lot of the depth. Here, I'll show you more of the image so you can really compare. Reflection-wise, obviously the pearl is in last place there, but contrast-wise, that is pretty stark to me. Let me hold those like way out front. You can just see I've got the velvet in this hand and the pearl over here. So the left side of the screen for you is the pearl, and the right side of the screen is the velvet. Pretty substantial difference in terms of contrast and saturation. I also think it will be helpful to show these. Let's compare same papers with different images. So this is pearl. Looks really nice for both images. I mean, that's just a beautiful paper. You can't go wrong with pearl unless you're somewhere that has a lot of reflections. But otherwise, that is, I think, for me, my favorite paper from this test. That just looks, it looks magnificent. That is so beautiful for both of these images. Okay, the Lustre side by side. Again, absolutely beautiful. This is your standard photo paper. Looks magnificent. The colors are incredible on the Lustre. Now let's look at the matte paper. This is the Fuji Crystal Archive matte. Get my fingers off the bison so you can see the shadows. Beautiful. Last but not least, the deep matte velvet. Hold these up, there you go. Again, beautiful. It's lower contrast. That's just the truth. But it still is a beautiful paper. It looks great. I don't think anyone will be upset printing on this paper. 4 beautiful papers. All 4 of them are good for printing. You just have to decide how much glare you want and how much you value the depth of the blacks. The more matte the paper is, not always, but in general, the lower contrast the dark portions of the image are going to be. And the glossier papers like the pearl are going to have a little bit more detail, contrast, a little more like vibrancy to the images. They look a little more lifelike. So it just sort of depends like what style of art are you printing and what are you trying to do? I don't think you can go wrong with any of these. So if you are like me and you like to spend a week researching and stressing out before every single purchase decision you make, you don't have to with these. They're fine. They're all gonna be good choices. You won't be upset no matter what. And they're all reasonably affordable prints. These were only a couple bucks each. It's not gonna break the bank. Now in a future video, I am going to compare fine art photo papers, like the Hahnemühle Photo Rag, the Moab Entrada. Those are not only more expensive, but they're a completely different beast. They can be a completely matte paper and have just the most outrageous depth to the blacks, and the contrast and colors are incredible. So that's a completely different discussion. That's a future upcoming video. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. If there's a paper that you print on that you love, please tell me in the comments below. I'd like to keep making more of these. I think printing is one of the most beautiful parts of photography. I'd love to talk more about different papers, so leave me a comment below, tell all your friends, and let me know if you print something that you love. In the meantime, I'm Nate in the Wild. Thanks for watching.